Let's start this position. So here it is black's turn to play, and we obviously want to draw this position. So pause this video and trying to find how can black save this position. This position this is a slightly complex position where you need to understand a few things. Like first you need to understand that this is a rook spawn, and a rook spawn is knight's enemy. So like in the case of a normal pawn, uh, if it reaches the 7th rank, then also knight can stop it. Like for example, if the pawn reaches on b7 or c7 something, and my knight reaches on b8, then I can prevent the pawn from promotion. But this is not the case with if the pawn. This is not the case with rook pawn. Suppose if the pawn is on a7 and I take my knight to a8, then he can simply trap my knight by bringing his king to b7, which is not possible with other pawns. So because a knight is trapped here, therefore it is very difficult to prevent the rook's pawn from promotion. So for other pawns we need only one last square vacant, but for this rook's pawn we need last two squares vacant. Like in the case of a5, we need a8 and a7. We need to prevent the pawn from reaching a7. So how can we prevent him from reaching a7? So the way to prevent him is, while his pawn is on a6, our knight should either be on b5 or on c8. Like our knight, if his pawn reaches in a6 here, then our knight should be on b5 or our knight should be on c8, so that he cannot advance his pawn. So this is the strategy. So here c8 and b5, these are the two key squares which we should try to reach. And if you notice another thing, that e3, like if you notice the square e3, from e3 the knight can aim for both knight c8 and knight b5. So this is definitely going to come in handy. If a knight can reach e3, then it can simultaneously aim both c8 and b5. So let's see how we should proceed. So obviously the first move is knight g5, because the knight cannot move anywhere else, and the king is obviously too far. So the first move is knight g5, and now if he advances this pawn, notice while we play knight g5, our aim is to reach the b5 square. If you successfully reach the b5 square, then it's a draw. Like before he reaches the a7 square, of course. So if he plays a5, then it's already a draw, because now I will place my knight to f3. My aim is to play knight d4 and then knight b5. The point is that if he plays a6, I will play knight d4. Now I am one move behind, but I have a check from c6. So if he plays a7, I can give a check on c6 and then capture his pawn. So this will be a draw. And if he doesn't have any alternative, but because if he plays king d6, then I am reaching on time. I will play knight d4, and I am reaching here on time, like in this position. If he plays king d6, something like this, then I'm reaching here on time. He cannot play king c5 because of knight b3 check. And if he plays a6, I am playing knight b5 and I am on time. So here a5 is simply draw, because after a5 I should just play knight c6 and a6, knight d4, and this is a draw. So he cannot play a5. So the other strategy could be for him, because he was not able to prevent my knight from coming to d4 after a5 and knight c6. Now it's too late to play king d6 or something else, because I will simply reach e5, simply reach d4, and then he cannot play king c5 because of knight b3 check. So he cannot prevent my knight from coming to b5 after playing a5. So he can try it one move before. So if he plays king, he can try playing king d6 and then king d5. Like here he will play king d6, and when I will reach knight, I'll play knight f3. He will prevent my knight from coming to d4 by playing king d5. So now comes another critical point. So now he has prevented our knight from coming to the b5 square. So there was another key square, this c8 one. So we should try reaching this square because we cannot reach this one, so we should try reaching this one. For reaching this c8 square, where should we put our knight? Obviously not here, not on d2 or d8, not on e2 or e1. But among we need to choose among h4 and g5. If we play knight g5, then this doesn't help because where will we go from g5? But if we play a knight from h4, then from h4 we can come to f5 and then e7 and then c8. So this could be a route, like knight from h4 then to f5 and then to e7 then to c8. And from h4 and to f5, after coming to f5, I can go to d4 and e3 also, because if he tries to move his king to prevent me from coming to e7 and c8, if it tries to prevent me from coming to e7 or c8, then I can move to d4 and b5. And and if I manage to reach the d6 square, then I both c8 and b5. So this should be our strategy. So the next move is knight h4 and not knight g5. Our plan is to play knight f5. Now if he tries to prevent my knight from coming to f5, then I will again come back to c6. He will have to come again. So this is not a big deal. So he will play a5. Now he will play knight f5. Now if he pushes his pawn to a6, then I can play my knight to e7 with a check. A check is very important because this is with the gain of tempo. So if he plays a6, then I will simply play knight e7 and then knight c8, and this is a draw because we reached the c8 square before before the white pawn is reached a7. So this is a draw. So he cannot play a6. So his other plan could be to stop my knight from reaching the c8 square. So he will play king c6. And notice here, should we play knight e7 check or knight d4 check? Here we should be careful because if we play knight e7 check and he plays king d7, what will we do? His threat is to suppose we play knight e7 here and he plays king d7. What will we do? If we try to reach the d4 square, it's too late because if we play knight c4, a6 and knight d4, it's already too late. And if we come to the d5 square, then where will we reach? Like we cannot prevent the pawn, like uh, after he plays this thing, he's playing king c7. What will we do? We cannot play a knight to a8 because it will be trapped. We needed to reach some c8 square, but it's not. This is also not possible because if we play knight c3, then we will push the pawn to a7. So here knight e7 will be a disaster for black. So the correct move is knight d4 check. And the point is, now he cannot play king to c5 because we will give a check on b7 and then captures his a5 pawn. If he doesn't play king to b6, then I will play my knight to b5. It's a draw. So his only way is to play king b6. Now he has placed king to b6, and he will take two moves to reach the a7 square. So I can eye the c8 square, and the c8 square comes with a check. So I have two moves. So now I will eye for the d6 square. So I will come to f5. We will play a6. Now I will come to e3, d6. The point is that now he cannot push a7 because of knight c8 check and the knight takes a7. And if he tries to move his king, then I can reach the b5 square. Like this d6 are also in a very important square because from d6 I can eye both the c8 and the b5 square. So if he plays the a7, then I will play knight c8 check. And if he tries something else like king c6, then I will play knight c8. If he tries to prevent knight c8 by king c7, I will play knight b5. So in this way, black can save this position. It's important to note that this d6 square is very important. We can eye both the c8 and the b5 square simultaneously. And in the case of rook's pawn, we need to target the a7 square. In the case of pawns on the other files, we can only the one vacant square would be enough. Like if the pawn was on b7, only the b8 square would be enough. Or on c7, c8 square would be enough. But in the case of rook spawn, we need two vacant squares. So we need to either b5 or c8. Okay.